So we're here today to talk to Keeley Lengthorn, a partner in Taylor Rose law firm in London, about the campaign that she's running called George's Law and some work that we're doing at Briefed to help assist this campaign. Keeley, welcome to Belfast.
Thank you very much.
Your first time here. Good
Yes.
stuff. So could I ask you to describe to us what your campaign is and why you have felt a passion to start this campaign?
So the campaign started just over 12 months ago. I've unfortunately had 3 separate baby losses. So I had my first loss at 6 weeks pregnant in 2020. I had a second loss, which was an ectopic pregnancy in 2021, and then my son, George, was born sleeping in March 2022. Shortly after George's birth, it became apparent to me that unfortunately there's a real gap in the law in terms of protection for any pregnancy losses under 24 weeks. So with the assistance of Angela Crawley MP in July of last year, I started a national campaign to petition for everyone who loses a child under 24 weeks to get 3 days paid statutory leave.
So just thinking about the 3 pregnancies and the babies that you've lost, those were somewhat different circumstances which would have had different, for example, physical impact upon you. And then would it be correct to say that your return to work would have been different on each occasion?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think loss in general is a very subjective theme. It's not objective, so it's not one size fits all. So for instance, after my early loss, I came back to work immediately. After my ectopic, unfortunately, I required life-saving surgery, so I was off for a longer period of time. And then with George, I had obviously the physical aspect of giving birth, the mental aspect of losing a child, a funeral to plan, so I had a lot longer off. So my circumstances were very different, so my return to work was very different, and I don't remember really putting in place for myself, let alone what my employer could do for me really in terms of an early loss. But it was so much different to what it was with George, and it required a lot more thought and consideration.
And how would you describe the support that you've had from your firm?
So the support I've had from my firm's been amazing. So after my ectopic, I'd heard on the news and paid a lot of attention to what New Zealand were doing in terms of pregnancy loss. And New Zealand had implemented a policy across the whole of New Zealand for both men and women or same-sex partners, so parents as such, of implementing 3 days paid leave. So in December of 2021, I'd actually drafted a baby loss policy and presented it to the directors at Taylor Rose, and they implemented that. And it was just unfortunate that I was the first person to use it when I lost George. So we had that baby loss policy in place. So at the moment, that mirrors the New Zealand legislation, and it mirrors what I am asking the UK government to implement in terms of George's Law, which is 3 days paid statutory leave in the event of a loss under 24 weeks. Because at the moment we have nothing. So the law in its current stance says, despite the fact that I had a 12-hour labour with George, and I had to wait for a midwife to come and see me the next day to stop my milk and to see me for the after effects of birth, the law says that I go back to work immediately after that loss.
And I think that most people would find that very surprising, that they don't understand or realise that it's not a default position that you get paid leave in the event of a miscarriage or loss such as that. Now, I guess there might be some people that would say, well, surely you can take sick leave. And what would be your response to someone that believed that there must be some kind of a solution by virtue of taking some sick leave?
I would say that I actually find that quite insulting when I've had this conversation with many politicians, and when they say to me, "I'll just take it as sick leave," I say, "But it's not sick leave." I gave birth to a child who unfortunately didn't make it, and it's not sick leave, and it shouldn't be afforded such. And why should I have to use my sick leave at work? if anyone was to go for a new job and their sick leave record was disclosed, then they'd have to explain their story once again to their new employer as to why they've had 6 weeks off work. Why should they have to tell that story? Why should people not be granted this statutory protection? It's not sick leave and it shouldn't be afforded such. And you've got to remember as well that many people don't get paid for sick leave. So it will have financial implications on people as well, especially in the current climate, cost of living crisis, and it affects people quite enormously.
And I guess the additional argument to that has come to me is that for the person who wasn't pregnant, the partner, either the father or the same-sex partner who wasn't pregnant and therefore doesn't have physical symptoms, it would be typically quite difficult for them to suggest that they could take sick leave from work, particularly paid sick leave, because as the law exists at the moment, they're not the person that was pregnant. So as I understand it, the legislation that you're fighting for is that both parents are able to avail of the statutory 2 to 3 days.
And again, you're right. So if my husband was to say, "Oh, I've not had a baby, but my wife's lost a child at 16 weeks or 14 weeks, whatever stage it may be," they're not really going to be granted sick leave. So the George's law in its current stance, so in its current drafted form, would be 3 days for both parents, so whether it's a same-sex parent and it's a modern family's pregnancy, or whether it is a modern day pregnancy of a man and woman, both would be afforded the 3 days paid leave.
Okay. And so whilst that campaign is ongoing, of course, you and I have collaborated and reached out, and I certainly was inspired by your campaign and the energy that you put into that. And it resonated with me from having family and friends that go through this as well. And I wanted to consider how potentially Briefed could help with that and how we as a team could help you. And so what we've come up with together is to put together some training and resources that are available for employers and employees in the workplace at no charge, in an effort to make the workplace a safer and kinder environment to support parents going through this type of a bereavement. And it appears certainly that by virtue of rolling out training, that people get to understand what to say in these circumstances when it's quite difficult to understand how to comfort someone that you maybe don't know particularly well, or in some circumstances to know what not to say to make things worse. That this training has been useful from that perspective. And so how did this collaboration come about? It was really I reached out to you on LinkedIn, I guess. Yes, where all good things start.
I think we started messages on LinkedIn.
And we quickly came to the conclusion that this was useful. Now, certainly the point of the training is that we can encourage workplaces to change and implement better either baby loss policies or fertility officer roles that essentially support parents or people who would like to be parents earlier on in the journey, so that this is not something that they have to try to manage on the hoof when someone has a loss and they don't know how to deal with it. You were in a somewhat, if I can use the word, lucky position in that you had actually implemented this within your firm in advance of your loss with George. But not every employer or employee has had the cognizance to think about that in advance.
They haven't. And I think despite the fact that I was very, very lucky that we had that in place, and that I work for a law firm, that helps. But I've still learned a lot since the implementation of the policy and since starting this campaign, and even from us developing the training. I think I can say we've both learned a lot in terms of what employers can be doing. This happens, unfortunately, to 1 in 4 people. So 1 in 4 people in any organisation will suffer this loss. But if we can make their return to work a bit better, then it will have such a different impact on their grief, and they will remember that.
And I think all of us would want to try to make things a bit better. And so a friend of mine said recently, who has suffered a loss like this, he said, you can't, as a friend or colleague, you can't fix this problem, but you can try not to make it worse. And that's ultimately what we're trying to do. We're trying to help give employers and colleagues and friends the tools to understand how you can just make things a little bit better, a little bit easier, and definitely not make it worse.
Yeah, and I think from someone who's had a loss, you will always remember the bad comments that people made or the bad reactions, and I think if we can deal with them and make these people remember the good reactions and the kindness, then it would just make the feeling of that loss a bit easier to bear.
What can individuals do, or employers or businesses do, to promote George's Law, or anything that can help you along this way to make life better for everybody in the workplace?
So at present, George's Law, so the bill, the miscarriage leave bill, as it in its original form, has been stalled in Parliament. So at the moment, my aim is to try and make an amendment to the Parental and Bereavement Act of 2018. But we all know that laws take a long time to go through. So in the meantime, I am calling on all employers nationally to implement baby loss policies within their organisation. And as part of the training, there's a link to a policy that's downloadable and can be easily tailored to every organisation. And we're saying 3 days, but 3 days is really the starting point. So if businesses are in a position where they can offer their employees more, then brilliant. There's also the issue about making these policies accessible and making the training accessible. So when you've had a loss, the last thing you want to be thinking is, oh, let me think about where that bereavement policy is, or where that fertility policy is on the intranet. So it's about having a go-to and knowing where that document is. That's why at Taylor Rose we've implemented a fertility officer, so that if someone does have a loss, there is a contact that someone can liaise with and say, look, I've had a loss. Someone who's not HR. Not everyone wants to reach out to HR and say, I've had a loss. Okay, they want to sometimes reach out to someone who knows what they're speaking about and who's going to be compassionate and kind. And I'm not saying that HR departments aren't compassionate or kind, but I think having someone designated in that role, it is really, really important. So firms can be implementing the policy, they can be doing the training, and they can be appointing a fertility officer within the business.
What's the first thing that an employer could do right now to improve this situation?
So they can roll out this training. Okay, it's free, it's easy accessible, and it will then point employers in the direction about where they need to go in terms of the next stage.
Yeah, and so what they could be doing from a more governance perspective is implementing the baby loss policy that you're
implementing the policy, appointing a fertility officer so that employees have a go-to and they know who that person is and where they can go in the event of an unfortunate loss.
Have you come across any barriers or impediments to moving forward lobbying for George's Law?
Yes, I think one of the questions that I've constantly been asked by the business secretary, because this falls under the business secretary, not health, in terms of government, is how many people are implementing these policies. And momentum is a massive barrier that I've come across so what I need businesses to do and what I need individuals to do is to tell the world that they're implementing George's Law and that they're doing the training and that they are appointing a fertility officer and let people know, put it on socials, tell the world, tell your employees, and if you be brave. So if you're an employee and you know your business isn't implementing this training or doesn't have access to this training, put it on their desk and say to them, look, let's do this training.
Yeah, and so what we have done deliberately is that we've created this suite of training and resources to allow awareness to be raised and for people to get a toolkit essentially to cope and deal with this better, but also to gather data around which businesses are rolling out training, how successful it is, and the benefits to the business, to the employees, and to the implementation of baby loss. And that data will form part of how you lobby with the MPs, I'm guessing, for George's Law. Yes. And so all of this is here to drive forward change in terms of the legal system, but we're both lawyers. These things take a long time, and so while we wait for the legal system to get up to date, there's no reason why individual businesses can't implement this themselves out of a feeling of purpose and kindness and looking after their staff and fulfilling their duty of care. I know we will be.
Yeah.
So
and it will do wonders for retention rates, and be brave, be bold, and be the firm that everyone wants to be, and be the employer that everyone wants to follow, and give other people FOMO if you need to, in terms of implementing this policy and saying to the world, look, we support our employees in terms of loss, because like I said, this happens to 1 in 4 of your employees, and so you need to do all you can in terms of well-being that we speak about so much, and in terms of supporting them in the workplace.
Well, thank you very much. It's lovely to have you here.
It's lovely to be here. Thank you for having me.
We look forward to a lot of successful baby loss policies and governance implemented throughout the UK and Ireland to help move your campaign on.
Thank you.